Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's webinar, talking about our new Lender Analytics Advanced tier. We're going to be going through all the awesome new content that we have. We're really excited to show you all of the data that we have available. It's going to be myself, Sarah Hellman. I'm the director of our Lender Analytics. And we also have Paige Woodall on with us, our regional vice president of our Southeast Midwest region. So let's see, for today's agenda, we're going to spend most of the time doing a live demo of the site, going through all the different workbooks that we have in the advanced tier. We can also briefly discuss some benefits. And feel free, as we're going through it, if anyone has any questions, there's a little Q&A button up top. You can submit questions that way. And if any come through, we'll try and address them as we're going over the content, especially if it's kind of relevant to the section that we're speaking on. So with that, I will go ahead. Oh, and also we will be sending the recording out on this call as well for everyone to have access to. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen.
Sarah, I'll do my best to keep up with the questions that come through.
Thank you, Paige. All right, so first off, I'm going to start off, and so you can see here, I'm in this advanced folder. So any of you that are familiar with Lender Analytics, if you subscribe to the advanced tier, you'll be permission to have it access to this additional folder. And this is all the content currently in there. I'm going to start out in this front-end pricing workbook. This is one that we're really excited about. We've got over the years gotten lots of requests on seeing peer comparison data on front-end pricing. And we have some fields that we've added that I think have been able to get us a better peer comparison, better kind of apples to apples view. So the fields that we're looking at in here are discount points, lender credits, and lender fees. And we add these, calculate these out as in the formula you can see here into what we call a borrower price. You actually have access, our clients do, to borrower price reporting out of MCT Live as well. We have some reports similar to the nightly mark-to-markets where you can use the borrower price as the benchmark instead of using like the BE or LO price. So you can always check those out in the reports section of MCT Live if you're interested. But of course, here in Lender Analytics, we have this peer comparison data available as well. So this first dashboard in here is graphing out. You can see how that borrower price is trending over time and also compared to the originated note rates. So you would have your data over here on the left and then the peer data on the right. Kind of following suit with how the rest of the site operates by default, the peer data. So the peer data is the whole MCT Hedge client base, and by default, it's including all of them, except for that largest peer group is unselected as default. You, of course, can update that however you like, and you'd be able to see the peer group that your company slotted in the upper right-hand corner. So you can see for the sample client, they're in that 50 to 100 million a month group. These are calculated based on monthly committed hedge volumes using a 6-month rolling average. You can also filter peers by IMBs and different types of banks and whether they're selling to agencies, aggregators, or both. So these 3 bold outlined filters are going to apply just to the peer side of the data. And then you've got lots of other filters available that would apply to both your data and the peers. If you wanted to narrow down to specific regions, you have state and county filters. You can filter by program and lots of other loan characteristics. And then these.
Sarah, can you drill down on a daily basis with that?
You can. So there's a couple of different features. You, of course, have your date filter if you want to update and see different time frames. You can switch it to just days, but also like without even changing the amount of time displaying. There's a lot of spots in this site where you'll notice when you hover over, you'll see these little minus and plus signs pop up in the header that you can control the granularity. So I can click that plus sign and it'll expand it out. You can view it by individual date. That's available both on your data and the peer side of the data. So yeah, you can, and then of course, if you click the minus sign, it'll contract it back. You can contract it back to month or quarter or however you want to view it there. So yeah, you have some of the kind of different pieces listed out and averages in these charts at the bottom. This next dashboard in here, I think will be a pretty popular one. This is using all of the peer data to list out these different pricing components per note rate. So you can see, for example, you can look and see, I want to know on a 6.5 note rate what those average credits, points, and fees are, and then that resulting borrower price. So you have this data here that I think would be handy to view it per note rate. Again, with all those typical filtering options in here as well. We also have a FICO LTV heat map for the borrower price for both yourself and peers. And then this branch LO detail dashboard is going to be your individual client data that you can view these components broken out per branch. Or when you hover over, you'll see the little plus sign there. You can even expand that out to view it per loan officer as well. So if you kind of want to get some of this info of what your different divisions of your company are doing, you can see those components broken out that way. And then these last three dashboards are going to hone in on each individual component. So here we have the lender credit view. The blue line is your individual client data, and then the yellow line is the peer data. And the tables down at the bottom have some loan characteristics that you can see for both yourself and then the peers on the right. And then these last two look pretty much the same just for the other components. So you have the view for discount points and the view for lender fees. So yeah, I think this is a great way. I know in our essentials tier, you can compare originated note rates with peers, but this just kind of takes it a level further and lets you kind of analyze how was that rate achieved, what kind of points and credits are going into it. So I think that's great to be able to see a little more deep dive into those rates. I'll move on next and let's check out a couple of workbooks we have in here looking at spec pay-ups. I know that's been a pretty hot topic lately, so got a couple tools available in here. First off, we have the spec composition view. This is going to show for your current open hedge pipeline what the composition is in terms of loans that are getting spec pay-ups. So on the client logins, you would see this for your individual hedge pipeline. Right now, we're kind of viewing the client average or the client totals. So as you can see, only about 46, so less than half of the loans being hedged right now are not falling into any kind of spec story. And then all the rest of the production goes into some kind of spec. And I've actually just updated this so you now see the breakouts between conventional and government. So you can kind of see that differentiation. You can also filter if you just want to look at one or the other, that's available to you as well. So this can kind of give you an idea of for loans coming down the line to be sold soon, what might be kind of influenced by this fluctuation in spec pay-ups and the composition of your current pipeline. But then one that might be even more useful is actually tracking what those spec pay-ups have been. So that's what we have here in this historical spec pay-ups workbook. This first view graphs them out. So we're calculating these based on Fannie and Freddie cash window based pricing rate sheets. So essentially we look at what the standard like con 30 price is versus the different spec story pricing. We do it also for the 15 and 20 years. So you can see you can filter down. If you want to just look at 30 years, you could. You can look at using Fannie and or Freddie's data. I'll go ahead and narrow this down to just a few of these low loan balance spec stories because the graph's a little easier to see if you don't have all the lines on there at once. And I'll also go ahead and expand this out a few months. You'll definitely notice this downward trend we've had ever since the war with Iran began. The specs have just continued to kind of move down. Actually, we might be getting a little bit of a reprieve so far this month, which is nice to see. Those that graph's maybe looking a little better for this month, so that's nice. But yeah, it's a good tool to kind of track how those pay-ups are moving. I know depending on your pricing strategy, even most aggregators at this point do break out spec pay-ups in the rate sheets. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on this and ideally not pass 100% of the spec pay-ups through in front-end pricing. And markets like we've had recently, that can definitely hurt you in the end, since if you're pricing with 100% of that spec in your front end and then that pay-up drops before the loan's ready to be sold, it'll eat into your bottom line, of course. So definitely a nice tool to help you keep an eye on that and help you maybe with holding some of that spec in your back pocket so that if they're moving around too much, it doesn't come back to hurt you. This next view of it is a table where you can kind of see what that average spec is for the whole time period that you have selected. And I actually am in the middle of making an update to this view. I'm going to add some columns here so it'll actually list out, instead of just the average over the whole time frame. I think I'm going to change it so it'll list out each month so you can just see like the average for each month individually and help you kind of track those. By default, it lists per program, but you can also look for that little minus sign and contract it back to just see the average over all the programs averaged out. Or if you just wanted to see it for 30 years, you of course can filter as well. And it's a good idea when you're looking at these analysis to filter your note rates down to just the more common market note rates. The spec pay-ups definitely vary quite a bit for the fringe rates, and that's something that you can actually see in this last view. So this graph it's graphing it out per note rate. So as you can see, the pay-ups vary quite some bit for those kind of market note rates versus the fringe rates. And you may have noticed as you kind of move from dashboard to dashboard via these tabs, any filters you've updated will typically carry over with you. So you can see that we've updated to 6 months. So that kind of carried over to these other dashboards as we moved along and the specific ones we're looking at. If you back out in the file path though, and then re-enter, it will go back to the default filters. Right. Next, I will move on to, we've got a couple of views that are looking at TBA trades.
Sarah, quick question. Sorry, a quick question on the, there's been a lot of talk about passing through spec on the front end pricing. How would you best utilize that report as kind of a best practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely wise to keep an eye on it, especially if you notice downward trends and what those pay-ups are. But at any time, I think it's wise to not pass 100% of the spec pay-ups into front-end pricing. So yeah, this tool can definitely kind of help you keep an eye on that. So yeah, I'd recommend filtering this down to kind of the more market note rates. If you know that your production is specifically falling in mostly certain specs, you can kind of narrow it down to those ones that you do loans and mostly. You can change between Fannie and Freddie or look at both, depending. Probably just include both if you're selling to a lot of aggregators, because I think that their pricing for spec follows suit fairly closely. So yeah, that's kind of what I would recommend.
For the attendees, if you do have questions, you can hit the Q&A button up at the top and submit a question. If you have any while we're in the workbook, there'll hopefully be time for questions afterwards as well.
Right. Okay, let's see. We can check out this TBA volumes next. This is tracking what TBAs are being traded across our client base. So by default, it's filtered to the previous day, and you can see in millions how much volume our clients are trading. It's broken out per coupon and security type. And then you can always switch to a different time frame. By default, we're looking at the sells, but you can also see buys. These two filters wouldn't be available on the client-facing side, but you'd have these available. It also shows like the percent of total down here for the 15 and 30-year security types. And then we also have this coupon percentages view. So this is tracking what percent of trades are being done in each coupon. So you can see as rates have come up recently, this 5.5 coupon has started to get outpaced by the 6 coupon fairly consistently here in the last week or so. So if you're curious kind of where the trades are going coupon wise, this is a helpful view. Another view that we have that looking at TBAs is this one that's tracking roll costs. So I know you can have some flexibility on when you're doing rolls timing wise. So I built this to track and see if we could find some trends in when it might be cheaper to do them. So this first view kind of lists out each individual date, showing what the roll cost is. You can look at cost of a 1 or 2 month roll. And then you have the ability to filter it by security type and by coupon. And then you have these little markers on here showing when the notification dates are each month as well. I found it a little tough to find any trends using this type of view. So then I also made this view that kind of aggregates all the months together. So by default, it's got the last 12 months. And essentially what it's showing is on the first day of all those months, the 2-month roll, we have it set to 2, average 27 basis points. On the second day of all the months, it averaged 25 basis points and so on. So as you can see, this kind of helps you find that trend a little bit easier. It looks like, at least when you're looking at all security types, around the 25th day of the month seemed to be the cheapest, little more expensive at the end and kind of the middle of the month. So hopefully this can be a handy tool to maybe help cheapen those roll costs by maybe timing them a little better. Another feature of this site that's really handy is you can set up, it has a lot of features, like you can set up email subscriptions. You can just navigate to the view you like and either set it up right away with the default filters, or if you want the email to go out with some specific filters set, you can apply those. And you can click this button here, Save Custom View. So you can just give that view a name. You can even check the box for it to load that filtered view by default if you wanted to. So that's handy if you find yourself applying certain filters to a view over and over again, you can kind of just save it for quick referencing in the future and it'll be listed available in here. But then also you can do an email subscription to that filtered view. So under watch here, you go to subscriptions. So you can have it send you just the view you're on or all the views in that workbook. You've got a couple of format options available. You can customize the subject line, and if you want to put a message in there, And then down here where it says schedule, you click the little arrow so you can have it sent to you daily, weekly, monthly, and really customize the timing to your preference. So this is a great feature to get some of your favorite data to you via email on a regular basis, so you don't even have to log into the site.
I know that's been very popular. People stay busy and forget to go into the analytics sometimes, so it's a nice way to get that delivered to your email.
Yeah, it's a feature I highly recommend using for sure. All right, I'm actually going to pass it over to Paige for a moment, and he's going to share about some of the workbooks we have looking at BE to mandatory spreads.
Yeah, so this is something that top of mind, obviously, for a lot of our accounts, looking at the mandatory BE to mandatory spreads. The first workbook I'll go over is really going to be more micro view. So it would be looking from the lens of the seller, you guys. And so this first one is the spread between the committed bid and the cover bid. And I don't use this one too much. What I will say is you can really filter down to a specific investor and do some analysis that way as well. But the main one is here, and this one is showing the spread between the mandatory and the short-term BE delivery, so pricing. And so it's going to default to 3 months. You can always default to a longer or shorter term, depending on what you would like to see. And then over here, I typically suggest if you want to get a little bit more granular between government and conventional, obviously those have some different values. You can highlight those. And then if you really want to get granular, you can get con 30, and then it's going to show what that spread is. Now it's going to default to all over here, but if you did want to isolate a specific buyer, investor, you can do that here and do analysis that way as well. But again, it's going to default to 3 months, and you can change that. The next view is a table view, kind of the same thing. It's going to look at, and this is your data. It's going to look at the commitment date. It's going to pull that short-term BE price and the bulk price and show what that spread is. It does not default, I don't believe, to all investors. So if you want to add or subtract some, you can do that in here. But the one thing I would say in here that may be relevant is, you can filter down if you want to get specific in certain states to see how pricing looks. You can really dial in with the different filters. As Sarah said, if you like a specific view, instead of having to change it every time, you can save that. And then you can also download this into a PowerPoint. If you have too many investors on a PowerPoint, it's going to cut off. So typically three to four, you'll be able to pull that into the PowerPoint. Otherwise, you can use the crosstab and put it into Excel format. And then the last is going to show it's just breaking it out, the different delivery types. So we have agency, BAM and bulk. That's just a naming convention in MCT Live. So it's really your mandatory deliveries. And then blue here is your BE. Don't really use the bid filters much. But again, you can filter down on this however you want to get more granular. I would say in this workbook, the top two are these the table and the cover bid, committed versus cover. Now that's on a more micro level. The other one is going to show more high level macro of buyers. So you can see trends. And this is where I would focus in on your states that you do business. So if you do business in the Southeast region, you can pick those states, filter those, and then it's going to obviously change these numbers. It's good. Now this one defaults to 6 weeks, but you do have the option, like all the reports, to expand or contrast that. Investors, again, it's not going to filter to all, so you can add ones you want to see here. And then it's just a really good way to kind of see trends between mandatory best effort from a
Yeah,
table view.
so as you were mentioning, this workbook, it's using data from the whole client base. So definitely filtering down to like the investors that you're using would be a good way to kind of get a good apples to apples comparison of your spreads versus the rest of our clients. And then we just got a question about if you have to be approved to sell to those investors to see the pricing. So if you come into this workbook, that's the MCT spreads. You can look at those spreads for any investors since it's pulling data from the whole client base. But if you're in the individual client spread workbook that Paige started in, that's going to pull data just on the investors that you're including in your best decks. So all this BE to mandatory spread data is pulling the info directly from the best execution analysis. So that's why it is a shorter term BE that it's comparing. It essentially just takes all the prices from the best decks and puts them in to compare and average out. So you will just see investors in the individual client one of investors that are being included in your best decks. So you wouldn't necessarily have to be approved because you could add them as a shadow. I know a lot of times you can see shadow bids at least, although a lot of times you may not be able to add their BE rate sheet if you're not approved, since those are usually client specific in a lot of cases. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you. One thing I forgot to mention, as you start filtering down, just keep an eye on this number. If you get too granular, it may be a smaller sample size. So once I filter back to all, obviously bigger numbers, but if you get, a specific state and then you pull it in FICO bands, just keep an eye on the number of loans bid. This next one just shows, I'm sorry, this is the program view. So the orange is going to be conventional 30, blue's the conventional 15, red is FHA, and then VA. USDA's always seems to trend up here. But this is just going to, if you scroll over this on any particular day, it's going to show what that spread is between the BE and bulk price. So this is just breaking it down by program. I usually like this one. It shows it's going to pull in again certain investors. If you want to compare all, you can put that in. As Sarah said, like it may be good since this was aggregate. If you just want to pull in the investors that you work with or maybe shadowing with to get a feel for that. And then again, filter into the states that you do business is usually a best practice. This black line is going to show the average of all aggregators. And then you can see it highlights different investors here. If we added more, there would be just a little bit more noise in this overview. This is the government look at that. Same thing, same premise. It's going to pull just a select number of investors. But again, this is going to be by each investor that you have selected there. The black line is going to be the average of all those investors you have selected. And then this last one is one that is good. This red line is going to show the 5-day moving average of the max mandatory bid versus the max BE bid. And then if you scroll over this blue line, it's going to show you what that spread is on any particular day. So you can, and then the other thing to look at here is that loan count. So that's showing what the population is of those calculations for the max bulk price and the max BE price to get that spread.
And then we did just get one more question. They asked, can you compare a single aggregator's pricing across all MCT clients? Specifically, they'd like to see how our pricing with Investor X compares to the pricing being offered to other MCT clients. So yes, you could do that. I would say probably the table view might be easiest to do that. So here we're in the MCT spread one. So this is going to be the pricing data from our whole client base. So you could just select whichever investor you wanted in the drop down to display.
Should we go to client spread?
Yeah, and then you can go to the client workbook and also go to the table view would be good, I think. And then also just compare that same investor so you can see the BE versus the mandatory and what that spread is. So that can give you, that's one good way that you can see, compare the differences in both the BE, the mandatory, and the spread data between yourself and the peers.
Now, depending on what they're running, I mean, the loan sale color report in, now it wouldn't be against all aggregators, but if they wanted to isolate a specific investor to be able to show their rep, they could utilize that as well. And that's in the essentials.
Anyone that signs up for this advanced tier, you also, as you were mentioning, you get access to all the essentials data as well. So we have like a sold data peer comparison workbook in there where you can compare your sell pricing to the peers, and that's all combined into one dashboard, so you don't have to like switch around. So that would probably be a good way to do it as well. All right. I think that covers the BE to mandatory section, right, Paige? Yeah, I'll go ahead and start sharing on my end again.
Paige and Sarah, I just wanted to note there are a few other questions in there as well if you wanted to hit those at some point or save them for the end, but I just wanted to bring them to your attention if you scroll down in the Q&A section.
Yeah, I think we mixed a couple when we were going over the first couple of workbooks that we can try and touch on at the end of the call, or else we can always just write back to them individually as well.
Yeah, we have some on spec, Sarah, so we can go back to that.
Definitely. But I did want to touch on a few of these other workbooks that we have. So another new one I want to touch on here is this lock volume peer comparison with BE. So if you're familiar at all with our essentials offering, this will look very familiar. It's essentially the same as the lock peer comparison workbook, except this one has been revamped to add the non-hedged loan production into it. So yeah, in our essentials tier, it has the non-hedged data in the sold section, but in the lock section, we now have that available here in advance. So this is an exciting piece that I know has been requested several times to be able to see kind of as your volumes just being locked at the beginning of those loans, being able to kind of track those volumes and trends different ways is nice, not only on your hedge production, but also on maybe some of that non-QM and other loan types that aren't going through the hedge. So this first view is kind of an overview where you can see your data on the left and then the peers on the right. Similar filtering options to what we're used to having in the site. On all of these views that include both hedge and non-hedge data, you'll always see this hedge and BE filter up top. So if you were interested in only looking at one or the other, you can definitely filter down. Or if you want to look at some specific loan types. We've got all these different programs available, so you could filter to like ARMS or non-QM or something specific if you wanted to. But then we, of course, have tons of other ways of viewing the data that you'd be familiar with if you've seen this workbook in the other sections. So now it just kind of includes all the production instead of only the hedge production. So I won't go into all these different dashboards. There's a ton of different ways you can view your data. You can even view it per branch and loan officer. So if you want to see some of that, actually, this is the one that I wanted to click to because you can kind of see the color coding broken out between BE and hedged as well. Let's see here. I'll go back out. What should we cover next? So we've got a couple other workbooks we can show you. So this one compares agency and aggregator pricing. See, let me just check. So someone asked if it's, sorry, before I move on, if the data is based off current locked loans from users only on MCT. So yeah, all the data in here is from MCT clients. We do represent, our client base represents a pretty significant portion of the market. But yeah, that's where all of the info is being sourced. It's actual locked and actual sold volume that's going through our system from our client base. And then someone also asked about API data available. We do have the ability to set up APIs to some of our raw data directly from our kind of database. So if that is something you're interested in, we can chat on that separately. That is a possibility, yes. So let's see here. Oh, did we get another question too?
And Sarah, we have a few on spec if you want to get to the after you finish.
Okay, yeah. So this agency aggregator bid pricing workbook. So if you're kind of curious how aggregators pricing, sell pricing has been comparing to the agencies, we have a dashboard for each of the agencies that you can do that comparison with. So here on the Fannie one, it breaks out Fannie into the different iterations, so you can see retained as the orange line. This dark blue co-issue line for Fannie isn't going to have very much data because most of the Fannie co-issue goes through their S&P program, which is going to be this bright blue line. And you can notice most of the views in the site have this little tooltip. When you hover over it, pops up with additional details. So you can see, for example, this day S&P had over 500 loans. That co-issue on that day is only 19. So just a little word to the wise, that dark blue line is going to be more minimal data. And then the aggregators is going to be the gray line. So by default, it includes all aggregators kind of averaged out. You can see how that sell pricing is trending over time. You do have this investor filter available though, so you can narrow it down. If you want to just look at one aggregator, you can. You just have to keep the Fannie one checked for this view so that it continues to include Fannie's and iteration lines on there as well. So you can narrow it down just to the Fannie and whichever investors you want to see as part of that aggregator line. And you can, of course, also narrow down to specific program types and loan parameters if you wanted to. And then we've got the dashboards for the other agencies. So here's the Freddie one. You've got the orange retained again, and then the dark blue co-issue. And I believe that I need, here we go. CI, so, okay, so This one also, it breaks out the CIX and the CRX. So CRX is going to be that Freddie release. That's really popular, probably the most common co-issue, but those CIX I know are also getting really popular with Freddie. That's going to be this kind of medium shade of blue. So you can see all those different types of Freddie executions. And then again, the gray line being whichever aggregators you want to view. And for Jenny, co-issue retained in the aggregator line on here. So yeah, you can kind of see if I know probably aggregators might be more susceptible to changing their margins around and maybe not always tracking the market as squarely. So you can kind of monitor those different changes. It also has a couple other dashboards in here where you can see individual aggregators graphed out pricing wise and ranked wise. The Essentials tier has some great investor ranking data available as well. So I'd probably recommend using some of those other investor ranking workbooks rather than this particular view, but you've got this available if you wanted to. Then along a similar line, I have also a view where you can view sold data versus the TBA bond price movements. So in this workbook, you can see there's a dashboard for each TBA bond type that we're trading. So we can pop into this UM30 view to start. So in here, you're going to select what coupon you want to view. I guess we can switch this over to the 6 since that's kind of been where more of the volume's going recently. And then by default, it'll graph out all the note rates that typically will fall into that coupon. But you can narrow that down to just one note rate if you want to. So the TBA price line is going to be the gray one. So that's here. And then the different note rate pricing for your actual investors is going to be the colored line. So we've got the average sell price for all the investors on the 6 5/8 note rate displaying here. You can filter down to individual investors in here as well. There we go. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. Something weird was going on with that one rate. But yeah, if you wanted to just compare what the TBA volume was to the price movement of an individual investor, you do have this filter available. And then you've got the similar dashboards for the UM15. So if you want to see those price movements on the 15-year product, so you've got that black line is your TBA price movement, and then the colored lines, all those different note rates. Same kind of view on the Jennies as well. We did get a question about the percentage of market does this data represent? I believe we have around 35% of the market volume wise.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a pretty good share. Let's see. We can insert. Sorry, go ahead, Paige.
I was going to say, do you want to, we had a few early on that we missed in regards to the spec.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
one of them was if you're able to get loan level detail from the views. For example, he wanted to know if he wanted to look at what loans made up 20 million of the LLB 250, would they be able to back into that?
So this workbook that's tracking spec payups isn't using actual loan data. It's just using the prices from Fannie and Freddie. So you can definitely track for specific spec payups. Like if you wanted to look at that, was it the 220 they had asked about? You can definitely narrow down to that, or even if you wanted to just look at just the 30-year 220s, what was the pay up that they were asking about? Let's see. 250s, sorry. That's what I meant. So you can just view that 30-year. I know some of the other ones have multiple programs. So like if I look at the 85 bucket, you can see you can select just for 30-year, 15-year, 20-year. So you do have the ability to filter that way and to specific note rates. But it's not actual loans that this data is pulled from. This is pulling from the rate sheet prices, kind of comparing what that standard Con 30 price is to like what the Con 30 LLB 250 price is and all those other spec stories.
And then Sarah, how far back does the spec pay up data go?
So we started tracking this in late 2025, I believe. So let me just double check that. We can switch to years. So it has, yeah, so it looks like we've got it going back to about December 25. We might have some older data than even that. This spec info, it actually is pretty large data set, so it's hard to include back any further than that in this particular view because then the load times just start suffering. So if there was data that you needed for further back, we may have access to that, but in this as login view, that's how far back it's going. In most of the views, we do have a bit more than that though, usually a couple years worth at minimum.
We just had another question. MBS spec versus cash spec. I don't know. Do we have that broken out?
No. We are working on gathering spec info for MBS execution, especially for to be able to report on the Jenny side, since obviously that's kind of how it works on the Jenny side. They don't, I don't think they do rate sheets with different spec stories. So it's definitely something that we are working toward, but currently we do not have that.
Good question.
Yeah, we hope to release that in the future. Okay, I think is that all the questions for now? Hopefully we'll go through and make sure we didn't miss any others and get back to anyone if we did. So I think that covers the content pretty well, but we are continuously kind of rolling out new data. So keep an eye out on our quarterly release notes that we put out every quarter, kind of after about a few weeks after each quarter ends. That always does have a section on lender analytics that I highlight any updates that I've made to the site recently. So that can kind of help you keep posted on what we have that's new and improved. And then I think, David, if you wanted to switch back over to the slides, we just had something we can look at for a moment. Just a couple of benefits that I listed out that I think that all this advanced data can help our clients with. Hopefully, I think that it can definitely help increase your market share by kind of seeing how rates are trending, how those rates are actually being calculated, comparing to the peer data. I think that spec pay up info is highly valuable, especially recently with the big drop-offs that they've been having. It's really good to keep an eye out on what's going on there and make adjustments to how that you're passing spec into your front end pricing. It can really help give you data for when your LOs are saying, oh, competitor X is offering this better rate. You can kind of dive in and really see what peer rates are happening, and not only what that rate is from the peers, but kind of what the different components are that are driving it in terms of credit and credits and points. Also, having the non-hedge data on locks is really nice to be able to see lock volume trends, not only on hedge production, but really see the whole picture. And also some of that TVA data, like tracking roll costs and whatnot. So hopefully everyone on the call can agree that there's some valuable data available there. If anyone has any additional questions, feel free to submit them in the Q&A now. Otherwise, I'm available for any additional questions after the fact as well.
And Sarah, just a couple of things for the group. Just a reminder that the registration went out for next year's MCT exchange, March 2nd and 3rd in San Diego at the Intercontinental again. And it's actually the 1st through the 3rd. We're going to kind of switch it around. It'll be a Monday to Wednesday. We'll have a reception Monday night, and then the conference on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then if starting to book meetings already for the National MBA. So that's the 11th through the 13th in Chicago. So if you'd like to learn more about this or meet with us, just please feel free to reach out, and we'll put you in touch with your sales director to schedule.
All right. Thank you, Paige. I don't see any other questions at the moment. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their day.
Thank you.